everyone. My name is Jenny B. Hello, and welcome to everyone who is new to my channel. I have a lot of new subscribers, so I'm over the 9,000 mark now. I've been on just about almost 2 years, not quite, but just about 2 years. So that was exciting for me. And welcome back to everyone else. And thank you to all of you who subscribed to my newsletter. And I'm still working on, I want to make sure that we get everything in there. And it's just really a matter of time constraints with me. But that will be coming out within the next couple of weeks now that I have added so many of you. So I'm glad I didn't get it done a week and a half ago. So we're going to talk about the full moon that we have coming in Leo. And I want to mention first that we had our Emerald Fire meeting today, 2/2/2020. And, this was a cool day because it's the 33rd day of the year and we have 333 days left to go. Threes are typically associated with the Trinity, Father, the Creator, the Mother, Father, energy of the Alpha and the Omega, and then the Holy Spirit or Metatron or, whatever name you associate that energy with. That's like the confluence of our higher selves. And then the self, the Jesus, the Christ consciousness that lives in you and in me. And so good day to really looking at wrapping up whatever is changing for you right now, or whatever you'd like to get rid of and move toward then for the next chapter. I've said that this beginning before the beginning of the year and then moving through March, we're dealing with the Saturn, Pluto, South Node, Jupiter, Capricorn energy. So we're still working our way through that. And the Mercury retrograde that we have coming up will be dealing with a lot of those issues. Remember, Mercury was in the mix of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction at the time of the eclipses, and Mercury rules health. Jupiter rules wild animals and a lot of other things, but one of them is wildlife. And he was with the South Node. Ceres was also in the mix with Saturn and Pluto. And Ceres rules like nurturing, nourishment, how we grew up. But food has a lot to do with food. And so we see the pandemic, of the coronavirus. And so it fits right in with the astrology. The Saturn-Pluto conjunction there's a lot of history with pandemics, or, in 1982 when they came together in Libra, it was AIDS that we were dealing with. In 1944, it was polio. And and then there was something called the dancing plague in 1518 when they were together in Capricorn. Of course, nowadays in modern medicine, we know that a lot of people, we don't associate like a group of people dancing a lot with them all passing away. So obviously there was something happening there that wasn't discovered. But at any rate, that's the astrology. And, it's when Metatron talked to me about Dark Night of the Soul, he was talking about like a worldwide, not that necessarily each of us individually is going to go through a Dark Night of the Soul. Everybody has their own timing and comes to that kind of thing, on their own. And some of you may have experienced that already this past year. So, it's not an easy time to be on the planet. It doesn't seem so sunny. And so that was what Metatron asked me to talk about today, is rising above the energies. I want to talk a little bit. I was hoping to make a video about it, but now they've started already. So I'm just going to speak to the Eris Pluto squares that we have just started on January 26th. Pluto and then Eris, when Eris was discovered, that is when Pluto was demoted from being a planet to a dwarf planet, because she is bigger. She's larger body than Pluto. And Eris is the goddess of discord, the goddess of chaos, She wreaked a lot of havoc, having to do with a lot of things. I'm not going to go into all of the mythology of it, but one of the things was the start of the Trojan War, and she's about strife, and she stirs up a lot of strife. And of course, the shadow is always helping the light. It may not look like that to us at the time that we're going through periods of the dark night of the soul, or when things like this are breaking down, like government, things that we've counted on, begin to devolve. But the shadow is always serving the light in some way. So we just began those Eris-Pluto squares, Eris being at 23 degrees of Aries. And Eris moves even more slowly than Pluto. So when all of us were born, she was in Aries. She's the only planet that I have paralleled, or not planet, but dwarf planet, parallel my sun. So, and I'm an Aries rising. And so I am going to talk more about her. Maybe I'll put that in the newsletter too. But, we're coming to a point where it's becoming more and more obvious that there is a serious change needed, that we have to get rid of the way that we do like business as usual, because just covering things up and sweeping them under the rug isn't doing it for people anymore. So sometimes I question in the United States how far we need to be pushed for us to react. And I'm not talking about what's this moment. I'm saying, through the years, I've wondered, because in other countries, they seem to get into the streets more. But we'll see how this all plays out. Those squares are going to continue through October of 2021. So it's a long period of time that's going to be happening. And when those planets out there, they only move, Pluto only moves 3 degrees a year, but this is going to be some sort of transformation that may come about in a way that isn't so graceful, isn't so easy, isn't so peaceful. So we'll see how that goes. Now, this week, with that square, we had things playing out in the government of the United States. We were founded our democracy on checks and balances, and now that's sort of apparently doesn't really hold any weight anymore. And the UK, of course, left the EU. So big things happening this week. It will be interesting to see what the continuing story, the continuing saga of those stories is, how that's going to work out, over this next period, almost 2 years, or just about a year and 9 months-ish. Because, when they're that powerful, that can go on longer. We can have a bit of a hangover, so it may play out until 2022. We'll see. So, we're going to talk about now the full moon coming in Leo, and that is happening on February 9th for everyone. So, it's at 1:33 a.m. Central Time in the United States, 7:33 a.m. in London, and 6:33 p.m. in Sydney. And Leo is ruled by the sun. It's governed by the sun. And it's about you and the light and the gifts that you have to offer, the light that you have to shine to the planet, whatever gifts or whatever talents that you came to bring out for everybody to enjoy. And of course, that's different for all of us, but really focusing on shining. And it's beautiful that at the time of the full moon, you can see Jupiter there in Capricorn you can see him all in that mix right there. He looks like a funny number 4. I drew the green line because this program didn't show that he's in a quincunx to the moon. And then Neptune is sextile Jupiter and in a quincunx to the moon. And so that is what's called a yod, a finger of God. Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces. Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. So they both govern the sign of Pisces, which is about spirit and infinite possibilities, abundance, It relates to all that is, like the fact that all of us within us carry the light. We're each sparks of God, just as each flower carries that same energy of the creator. And you are a spark of God. I'm a spark of God. All that is, whether we like them or not, everyone is a spark of God. So when you see that yod pointing to the moon, you know, of course, because of Pisces, they're both linked with intuition, and so is the moon. And so whatever comes to you on that day, this could be divine inspiration for what your next, you know, chapter is going to be, what your goal is going to be, where your focus is going to go. But there's definitely really try, if you can at all, spend 5 minutes, you know, taking deep breaths in and out, and just see like what might come to you in meditation, or just simply make the statement, I'm open to signs and wonders. A lot of dreamy kind of energy with the moon and Neptune and Jupiter too. Whenever we're talking about Pisces, that rules the subconscious and dream time. And, you know, like when we're in astral travel times. So a lot of things probably will be coming to you. Maybe it could happen a bit before, a bit after. And also remember that the full moon is a time that something is manifested that of a seed that we planted in the past, and something comes to fruition then at the time of the full moon. There's like a finishing sort of thing. And with this configuration with the yod, it could be, because the South Node is still pretty close to Jupiter, that it's something that's linking to the past. So, you know, be open to information about past lives or other timelines. Time is not linear. Time has never been linear. From the human perspective, we think of it that way, but that's not the way that it truly is. But I see a lot of like upgrades, and there could be a lot of cause for celebration with this energy. And also, I want to mention that Venus, if you see Venus down there, she's right at the beginning of Aries. We've got Black Moon Lilith and Chiron there together. Black Moon Lilith and Venus will be at the same degree at the time of the full moon. And because Mercury is in Pisces, so Mercury will move into Pisces tomorrow on February 3rd. And he will stay there except for when he dips back into Aquarius, which I'll get to. But while he's there, it's important for us to like keep a check on reality kind of thing, and not allow like this Venus, Chiron, Lilith situation to like where we're in our thoughts so much that we go back to being the victim. Because a lot of things may come up about a time when someone took advantage of you, or something happened that you saw as unfair. I remember when all of this first started happening with me, kind of, you know, just like what the hell, supernatural things were happening. Like they had, like with a lot of intensity, like Metatron saying. And I remember that, like going over times that I had been wronged, and thinking, well, of course they know that happened, how unfair that was, that person did that to me. But the truth is that there's a reason that you chose that lesson. There was a reason that I chose those lessons. And one of the ways that we give away our power is when we blame someone else. Like, oh, I'm always having to contend with this person or this situation, just like this person did me wrong before. Now these people are doing wrong to me in the same way. Why? Why did you choose that? What was the lesson that you were trying to learn? It's not like karmic payback. You know, if we were evolving, like we're evolving, right? Our consciousness is evolving. If we stayed in the tit for tat, and this person wronged me in this life, and now I'm going to come back and wrong them, and how are we ever going to progress? At some point, there needs to be forgiveness so that we can wrap it up and put an end to the cycle. You know, you chose to come here and to go through those things so that you could learn valuable lessons and be finished with it. And, I was thinking when Metatron and I were talking about this earlier, a story that I heard Gary Shandling tell when and I don't know if all of you remember Gary Shandling. I can't remember what the name of his show was, the Larry Sanders Show. It was on a long time ago, and he passed away quite a while ago. But while he was alive, during his lifetime here, he had a near-death experience. He died. And he heard an audible voice say to him, "Would you like to continue the life of Gary Shandling?" And obviously he chose to stay and to continue the life of Gary Shandling. But, when we want to make sure with this Mercury in Pisces that we're not getting swept up in the illusion. We're not getting carried away by, all of the negativity going on out there, telling ourselves stories that don't serve any purpose except to bring up again that time that our feelings were so hurt or we were crushed in some way. It's really reaching. Mercury rules Gemini, and Gemini is about the mortal self and the immortal self. And, you are your higher self. You are the higher self. It doesn't exist outside of you. You are your higher self. And we put on these flesh suits and we have all of the things in our DNA that start talking to us and we forget who we are. That's why at the end of the first session with me, Metatron has everyone do the wing exercise. And, I've only had one person that did not like that because they don't want to see who they truly are. They're still giving their power to someone outside of them, telling themselves that an angel is telling them what to do. That's not really what's happening. You have your ancestors and your guides or the voices, the transmissions of the creator that we see as angels that have different names depending on, where we were living and what the culture was and yada, yada. But they're all just voices of the creator and the transmissions that come to us straight from the creator. That's why a lot of people see the angels as color and vibration instead of seeing them in their angelic form, because maybe you've moved past that and you just don't remember it. But we want to listen to our higher angels now. Mercury will go into Pisces tomorrow on February 3rd at 11:42 a.m. Universal Time. And then as he's moving retrograde, when we come to March 5th to the 16th, he will be back in Aquarius. And he will be back at the degree of his shadow where he is today. And the Sabian symbol for that degree is a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis. So again, a nod to Pluto, the transformation, when something dies in order for something else to be born. So it's a good time to make the resolution if you're trying to drop a habit or there's something that you've given power to outside of yourself that now you need to take that power back. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's worth it. And a lot of times, with our diet and exercise routine, which is Mercury as well, that can stop people from fully embodying the higher self, because our physical body has to be in alignment in order for us to have the complete transformation. And then, so the 5th to the 16th, he's going to go back into Aquarius. Now, Mercury is exalted in Aquarius. So hopefully there'll be a bit of a lift. And then he will finish with Pisces on April 11th. So it's a long time that he's going to be traversing the waters of Pisces. And like I said, that's the subconscious mind. And Metatron is speaking to the stories that we tell ourselves, and to start telling yourself a new story of encouragement. So many times most of us, really, I don't think I've ever had anyone who didn't have this. There's somebody in our lives, usually when we're young, and those subconscious programs get put in, like in the first 7 years, or they're in the DNA, and you kind of come in with that, where we're criticized a lot. And then we start to do it ourselves because we think that it's a way to be better. And so it's really recognizing that you're already perfect, you're already accepted, and to start telling yourself an encouraging story like, oh, you did that really well, instead of like, oh, you could have done this and this. And I know it isn't like a conscious thing, but that's a healing that when we do that healing with someone else, we really, it's up to us then to reprogram the subconscious. So if you know of things that you were taught as a child about yourself and you consciously know that they're nonsense, your subconscious most likely still believes that story. And the only way to check that is using kinesiology. With kinesiology, we can test what we believe to be true. It isn't like we're a pendulum that the creator is telling us, but it's anything that you want to check in the subconscious. You can use kinesiology to test that. And then Venus on February 7th and 8th, right before this full moon, Venus is going, and 7th and 8th, I say that because it depends on where you are in the world. Venus will enter Aries. So I talked about this in the last video, that Mars is going to move out of bounds on February 10th, and he will remain out of bounds through March 3rd. So that's pretty much February is going to be Mars out of bounds, and Venus in being ruled by Mars. That's going to be her whole trip through Aries. Venus is kind of a badass in Aries anyway, but then when you put her with Chiron and Black Moon Lilith, we can have a really short fuse. So it's important at this time with Mercury and Pisces and all of the other things that we have going on. If there needs to be something said, say it if it's going to resolve something, and to come as a peacemaker is what Metatron is saying, to ask to be imbued with the energy of the messenger of peace. And so if we need to have that kind of thing, it will just help to calm a lot of conflicts. A lot of times when I need to have a big conversation with someone, I will speak to the person's higher self. Or, you could ask your higher self to please, pave the way, or ask Metatron if he could pave the way. This could have a lot to do with work, once again, with all the Capricorn things happening. But right before I sat down, I had a text come in from a friend that says she knows of 4 couples that have split up within this last week. So we're still in that energy of, partnerships coming to an end, places where there's an imbalance, correcting that for ourselves. And I just thought of something while I was talking, and now I can't remember. Oh, I was going to say that by Valentine's Day, just for those of you who celebrate Valentine's Day, Venus will move away from Chiron and Black Moon Lilith. And Chiron and Black Moon Lilith, Lilith is, the mythology is that when she was in the garden with Adam, she was one of his wives. And when she found out that the deal with him was that she had to be subservient, she checked out of the garden. She was like, oh no, Lilith wants to be free. And she knows her own mind. But in the charts, like when I do healings with people with their natal charts, there's a healing that needs to be done with Lilith, because he's saying that it can be where we feel like our power has been usurped, or where someone's tread in a place where they needed to maybe stay away from. So, and Aries is about independence. And Chiron is like the wound of self, that we all have this going on for the past about 1.5 years, and will continue about 5 years, Chiron and Aries. So healing the wound of self, healing the wound of the masculine side within us too. And that has a lot to do with when an authority abused your power. I know in some instances, if we were raised by somebody who was a bully, even if they didn't actually act in an abusive way, just the fear of living with someone and not knowing if they're going to go off, or just like living with constantly feeling like there's a bully around that you need to protect yourself from, we can close up the root chakra. This is really important right now, that we are exercising our, rituals of self-care, pampering ourselves in some way, and remaining grounded. If you can walk outside, that's a great way to do it. Even being in a pool of water, is helpful. Baths are helpful. Showers are helpful. Of course, in other ways they're helpful, but if you can give yourself a bubble bath, if you have the time to do that, it'd be really good if you could carve that time out for yourself. And of course, Mercury and Pisces, I always say a good remedy for that is music and dancing, because Gemini, Mercury is about dancing as well. So it's good if we can do that and find ways to rise above what's going on. Turning off the news, for instance, is, there's so many stories now that we don't even hear about on the news anymore in the United States, because it's really just about one thing only anymore. And it doesn't, where, like Metatron, I was doing a healing in relation to something that came up about Kobe Bryant, and, Metatron just said it has nothing to do with you. Like, who cares what that person's opinion is? It really, not that he was saying who cares, but he was just saying, like, why do you care? Like, why do I care? I really don't care. It doesn't affect my life. And that's what he was telling me too about the whole, thing that's going on with the government right now. With the administration, is that really, like, I know that it affects the wildlife and that kind of thing. I get that. But don't allow it to affect your vibration. Is it going to help if you get caught up in all of the drama? No, it's not going to help. It's just going to hurt you. So really, like, rising above what's happening and using that light of the soul, that Leo. Yes, Leo is ego too, but again, your ego, if you didn't have ego, you would have no personality. So we need the ego, but it doesn't have to be lower ego or like trying to get attention, Leo. But it can be that you're allowing your soul to shine through you. And loving everyone and practicing, when you're doing that grounding, if you have grounding meditations or you're practicing grounding in meditation time, when you see the coil drop from the root chakra and wrap around the center of the earth, then you can witness the energy coming up from the center of the earth, flowing up through the root chakra, and you will feel your heart expanding if you do that. So it's a really good time to, make sure that our heart is open and that we're not getting involved in things that are just distractions. When Mars moves out of bounds, Mars rules our focus, our intent, our willpower, and our determination. And he's exalted in Capricorn, which he's going on his way to. And when he's there, and out of bounds, tempers can flare. So I'm sure that that's all going to be happening out there, but we're in the world and not of it. You can recognize what's happening around you without participating in it. So I'm going to read, because this is in Leo, it's Leo, of course, is ruled by the sun. And so we're going to read the symbols. This is the Omega and Chandra symbols for, it's happening, by the way, at 20 degrees and change of Leo, and the sun is at 20 degrees and change of Aquarius. So we're going to read those symbols. The Omega symbol is a numerologist at work on a tropical island. And it says, this degree has a great desire to understand the workings of the universe. At its best, it is able to relate universal principles to the flow of life around it, and to see those principles at play in all the processes of nature. At its highest, this becomes a deep and dynamic understanding of life that can be shared with others. And then it speaks to, like, being careful not to isolate at that degree. That's what the degree is speaking to too. So, being like going within, but not isolating ourselves from interacting with other people. I find that when people do that, it's a lot harder to like other people, because, you're just inside watching the news or whatever you're doing. And even with YouTube videos, you can kind of forget that when we like all stand in line together, we can chit chat and we can be civil to one another. It's not really always fighting about politics. It's not really always arguing about whatever is going on out there or being bothered by it. We really do need to commune with each other. Okay. And then the Chandra symbol for this degree is a beautiful woman dressed in white. She is wearing a large silver crescent on her head. The crescent is pointing upward. This degree is capable of great receptivity to the messages coming in from the higher self. It is often through no longer being able to tolerate the disappointments and delusions of life that we look beyond the material world around us and seek alignment with the higher, subtler energy. This degree always feels the urge underlying everything and is always willing to encourage others to also attune to spiritual truth. The phenomenal world is lush and chaotic, like the tropical island of the Omega symbol, but within it there is always a part of ourselves which strives to tune in to the order, design, and harmony of it all. We have all of that inside us. That's innate, that we crave peace. And so really, taking time to ground, spending time in water, music, dancing will be the saving grace during this next period because, Mars out of bounds is not a joke, especially in Capricorn. And we've got, Chiron, Eris, Black Moon Lilith, and Venus all in Aries, being ruled by that Mars out of bounds in his sign of exaltation. So really, and Mars being the self and the will, that's really if we can focus, if we can just do, and he's talking about like not planning too many things for ourselves, but really, one step at a time. I know I have that feeling right now where I really want to rush in. Saturn is coming up to, my Mars is at the degree of exaltation in Capricorn. So I kind of feel like, that cartoon where somebody's got the suspenders and the kid is just running in place. That's what I feel like. And I think a lot of people are going through that now where they kind of feel like the engine is running, it's ready to go somewhere. And, picking something to where to point the arrow and waiting for divine timing. A lot of this is divine timing. And 2020, relating to Uranus being a 4, it's like we have to wait for things to line up with the soul family. And I wanted to mention, too, one of the women, Maggie, who was in the Emerald Fire meeting today, said that she'd seen a vision during our talk this morning and a couple of months ago as well, of people in caskets sitting up. A lot of people are waking up now. And, it's kind of waking up right now. A lot of people are going to wake up right now. And a lot of people are going to come to their wits' end and finally start looking outside themselves for something that has meaning because of all of the things going on individually. Because people that don't know about this are still going through it. So, I thought that was really exciting. I wanted to share that with all of you. And, our vibration makes a difference. So if you can do things to fostering self-care, he's talking about things that will raise your vibration right now, that affects the whole. Everything that we do affects the whole. Also, something that he pointed out to me or illustrated for me right before I got on was psychic attacks. When you you do your thing, you clean, you make sure your energy is all clean, and you zip yourself up before you leave the house. When you have a negative thought about someone, that shoots out and it clips that person, and that opens your energy, and the same thing that you said about the person, the effect on their energy, it's in you now. Now that's in your space. And then our thoughts can start going where we're like, why am I having all of these negative thoughts suddenly? It's because we're sending out psychic attacks. So the best way to protect yourself against that is to keep your own thoughts clean. And what I do is when I have those thoughts, because of course I do, I say, I forgive myself. I ask forgiveness of all that is, and I allow this to be released. And then it's important to just envision, I don't know, you could see a knife or, there's different ways to do it, but that going into the light and being transmuted, and then seeing like white sparkles. That's when the soul fragments are cleansed and returned. That's typically what they look like. Seeing those soul fragments coming back to you so that you're not open. You know, once that thought has gone out, then you're kind of open. And, you know, like the armor of God is used in the Bible as a way to illustrate how to protect ourselves. And that's putting those things into practice. You know, speaking the truth, using faith, being righteous, you know, not having anything in your energy or any like hatred toward people, keeping yourself clean. That's the way that you protect yourself. So, okay, I think that I've gotten through everything I wanted to share with you. And if you want to check out, I can't remember if I mentioned that we had the Emerald Fire meeting today. That is on Vimeo if you'd like to take a look at that. There's some meditation and we do some downloads from the Sophia Code by Kaya Ra. And we'll keep going on with that. It's the first Sunday of every month. And it's free to join, so we'd love to have you. You don't have to be on camera or say anything. But we had a lot of new people today, so that was very nice. And thanks again to all of you who joined me for that. So anyway, everybody, hang in there. You know, this isn't an easy period. Be gentle with yourself. Be kind with yourself. Be patient with people around you. Be careful driving, especially as Mars, you know, goes into Capricorn and then goes out of bounds. Careful driving, because Mars is also like the guy that gets in the car and doesn't care. He's racing everybody on the road. So anyway, everyone, take care. Sending love to everybody.